Hello, my name is Dale Adams of Planning Ahead of Time, and on this week's Cat Chat, I'm speaking with Heather. Heather, would you like to tell us about yourself?
Hi, I'm Heather. I'm a flower farmer and florist based in Warwickshire. So I grow flowers for cutting, and sell them for all sorts of events, weddings, funerals, parties, bouquets, all that sort of stuff you do with flowers. I'm also a florist, so I do provide funeral flowers and flowers for weddings primarily, as well as making up bouquets. Um,
Whereabouts are you based?
so I'm in Warwickshire. I'm near Southam, so
Okay,
sort of between Leamington and Rugby.
right. So when you say you're a flower farmer, I've got to admit, it's not something I've really heard of before, and that you actually grow the flowers for the florist. How far out do you supply?
I supply within about 15-mile radius of where I am. There is an organisation called Flowers from the Farm, of which I'm a member, which is nationwide. And if you go onto their website, you will be able, there's a thing on there which says find flowers, and you'll be able to find your nearest flower farmer. And probably the majority of us do funeral flowers as well. So you should be able to easily find, and you can select the type of flowers you're looking for. So if you're looking for something for a funeral, that's a great way of finding locally grown flowers.
Brilliant. I have to say, I didn't know there was a flower farmer actually close to where I live. So that's
Yeah,
lovely to know.
you're Leamington, aren't you? There's actually quite a few of us near you. There's probably 7 or 8, I think.
I think
In
you're not in that industry, you just see, oh, you just go to the florist and say, can I please have these
Yeah.
flowers? And that's it. So I know that as a florist, you also do funeral flowers. So you would do any tributes that somebody would want?
Yes. Now when I'm doing flowers, I work what is sort of called in the industry sustainably. So I aim that everything I make or I use kind of, we call it the mechanics, so the things that underpin the flowers and make them go where you want them to go. So I aim that everything I use is either reusable, recyclable, or completely biodegradable. It's very common for a lot of florists and floral arrangements to be in floral foam, commonly called Oasis, which is that sort of green, foamy stuff.
Yes.
Which is great. It holds the flowers beautifully. It's very easy to work with, but unfortunately, it's a single-use plastic. So, and you know, hands up, I didn't know this until 5 or 6 years ago.
No.
It doesn't compost, although a lot of people have put it on compost heaps in the past, including myself. And basically, because it's crumbly, it breaks down into microplastics very, very quickly. And because it crumbles in that way, it gets into watercourses very easily.
Wow.
And it looks to a fish actually like food.
Oh, crikey. I had no idea at all.
So it is something that, yeah,
it's really bad for the environment then.
It's really bad for the environment. And I the challenge is, as with everything, if you're buying flowers for a funeral, particularly, the ones in Oasis will probably be cheaper because the Oasis is quite cheap to buy and it's faster for the florist to work with.
Okay.
But that doesn't, in my head, certainly take account of the whole life cost of using that Oasis.
Yeah. So again, obviously, when we go to florists, as you say, I've had times when I've needed to organise funeral flowers, of course, and actually bought some last weekend for a family member's funeral. And I didn't think to ask at all. I simply said, can I have a bouquet of flowers or an arrangement of flowers at this value of money, and I need it on this date for this funeral? It didn't even occur to me to say anything about how that would be, as you say, the mechanics of it. I think was your words. It didn't occur to me at all. I just wanted something that was going to look pretty and that was going to be there. So
Yeah.
Is it normal then that people use the Oasis? Is it something you have to ask for?
I would say probably at the moment it is something you need to ask for, i.e. not to use it. And I think the more people learn about it and start asking for it, the easier it will be to get things that are not made in using that floral foam.
Yes.
I mean,
plastics. I mean, at the moment, there's obviously a huge movement to try and stop it. And yet I wouldn't have necessarily assumed, well, I wouldn't have assumed that that was what it was really.
Yeah. I mean, there are some forms of it that are now described as biodegradable. Now, I'm not an expert, and I probably haven't done quite enough research into understanding exactly what that means, but they're very much biodegradable in landfill. Okay. And of course, one of the challenges with a lot of funeral flowers is they're often left on the grave.
Yeah, because you did mention specifically with funeral flowers that, it was more a problem. And that's why then, rather than it being put to landfill or sort of going into your bins because it's at home, they're being left outside.
Yeah. But for a wedding or something, the flowers are usually collected and disposed of. For a funeral, they are very off. I mean, sometimes they do go home with family members, which is great because then they're enjoyed for longer. But quite often they are left with the grave, and then they just kind of, well, eventually probably whoever manages the graveyard will pick them up and put them somewhere, but that could be quite some time later, by which time aspects of them may well have just disappeared into rainwater and into the environment.
Okay, you say that. I just mentioned that it was a family funeral last week, and we got there, and it was said that the flowers were going to be taken, obviously, to the wake and to the service afterwards. And when we got there, the main coffin top was taken, and some additional flowers that the family had bought. But a lot of the other flowers, because it was flowers from family only, got left at the crematorium. And I actually went back to the crematorium and picked up the rest of the family flowers and took them to their home. But there were a lot of others still there. There were, again, coffin tops and other beautiful bouquets and things were actually still at the crematorium. Again, next to they put out the name, don't they, of who funeral it's been. And I looked at them, I thought, I wonder. And that was a genuine thought, because again, flowers are quite expensive. I thought, I wonder if they're going to pick them up and take them home.
So I just think it's something for people to think about. If you're planning your own funeral, what legacy do you want to leave in terms of the impact of any flowers you have? And if people are buying flowers, ask if they can be done sustainably. Now, some florists may jump to the challenge. Others may go, well, no, we can't do that. There are certainly plenty of florists around who can.
As I say, I wouldn't have thought about it. So in that regard then, if people are just buying bouquets of flowers and they haven't checked if they're sustainable, would you advise that they don't leave them on graves, they actually take them home after the funeral, because they last longer, and then they can dispose of them properly?
Yes, I would. I mean, when we say bouquets of flowers, we are talking about arrangements, a wreath, a heart, that sort of thing. If you're just talking a bouquet, then it may be wrapped in plastic, but that cellophane type plastic is actually usually recyclable at a supermarket.
Yeah. No, sorry, I also I did mean the actual arrangement.
Yeah, the arrangements. Yeah, it's all right. It's probably me using sort of more technical terms, but it's just trying to differentiate between a bunch of flowers and an arrangement.
No, I think it's important that you pick me up on it, because it's right, when people are listening to this, to actually again be aware of what it is you actually mean by that.
Yeah,
it would be better if they took it home, because if then they dispose of it in their bins, it goes to landfill.
And that is a better option. I mean, the best option, don't use it. Use something that is properly biodegradable. Second option, take it home and dispose of it properly, and don't leave it just to be washed into the watercourses and that sort of thing.
So what if somebody put it in their green bin then? Would that be better?
No, because it's not going to biodegrade. So effectively, the contents of the green bin go off to big industrial composting plants. And then they're sold to farmers, to allotment holders, to gardeners to put on their garden. So they're going to get compost with a big lump of green plastic in the middle of it, which either they've got to then put in the bin, or it's going to end up on their soil in their field to again crumble and go into waterways.
So it's the same.
So it's the same problem. Yeah.
The
But
only way to truly dispose is to actually put that into your physical bin so that it goes to landfill.
Yes.
And
by all means, pull the flowers out and put them in your green bin. That's fine. But the rest of it does need to go into landfill.
And preferably, we don't want more going to landfill. So the best option is to ask about other ways of basically presenting the flowers.
Yes. And there are lots of beautiful ways of doing that. A simple funeral sheath, which is, or sheaf even, which is just basically a flat bouquet, has no, basically no mechanics in it at all. It's just the flowers. The sort of coffin toppers are relatively straightforward to make in a sustainable way. Things like mum, dad, the letters can be done, but they're more difficult.
How would they be done if you don't understand?
So there's various ways. The letters can be made out of sticks bound together, and then moss or similar used to make a shape. I have seen people buy cardboard letters from Hobbycraft and make it up out of those. There's many ways to skin a forestry cat, and people try all sorts of things. Actually, just while I'm mentioning moss, I should probably say that, because somebody I'm sure listening to this will say, but moss isn't sustainable. Moss can be, so in a lot of cases, rather than using the foam, people would typically use moss to kind of give the bulk and the shape underpinning the flowers. And that can be an issue from a sustainability point of view. It's like anything. Anything you do has some sort of environmental impact. Moss is probably a less of an issue, but the florist does have to be careful where they source it from, because some sources are more sustainable than others, and it's about ripping out all the moss and then there not being any. If it's British, it's typically been harvested in a way that doesn't damage the environment. If it's come in from overseas, there is a bigger risk that it's having an impact somewhere else. And I guess I'm going to have, as a flower grower, I'm also going to have to mention imported flowers, which obviously have a greater carbon footprint than flowers grown locally to you. They're often grown in heated tunnels. Obviously they've travelled, so they've got that aspect of the carbon footprint. It's one of those cans of worms. When you start opening it and you start looking into it more deeply, there's all sorts of things to think about, worry about. I think what I'm trying to encourage today is people to think about not using that single-use plastic as the basis. It's like anything.
When you start talking, you suddenly think, well, yes, I suppose I've seen large lorries in towns that have come from overseas full of flowers, actually supplying to the local florists. And of course, as you say, everything, if you take it out of the UK, is going to have a bigger environmental impact. And I know today you wanted to bring up about the sort of the single-use plastic, and I'm glad you did. I didn't know, and it didn't have occurred to me. I'm, at recent funerals that was a problem. I just ordered the flowers. It's certainly something that I will now think about. So if somebody wanted to become more environmentally friendly with what they were doing, based on the fact that a lot of people are already trying that to sort of just adjust their ways to, and even the smallest change can actually ripple out into a what would you advise them to do when they want to go and order some funeral flowers or any flowers that are normally in an oasis? What would be your advice to them?
I would ask the florist whether they're going to use floral foam oasis, and ask them if they can do it without. If that florist can't, then look for alternative. There are plenty of florists across the country who can deliver the thing you need without using the Oasis. They may not be on the high street. So you may have to go online and look around for who will do that for you locally. There is, I've mentioned Flowers from the Farm. There is another group that's recently been set up called Farewell Flowers, which is very much about trying to encourage sustainability in funeral flowers. And certainly everybody on their listing will be delivering flowers in a sustainable way. Yeah. So there's places out there to go look. I'm conscious this is quite a national thing, but I will say local to you in Leamington, Little Garden Flowers, any funeral flowers you order from her will be sustainable.
Okay. And the same with yourself, of course.
Yes. I just Lois has got a shop, which makes it kind of slightly easier for people to go. I supply her flowers, so I'm not kind of totally doing myself out here.
It's lovely. It's always nice when people recommend other people anyway. So she's got a shop. So you don't have a shop, but you have the farm, and then you can
and a website, and people can order from me from the website.
Okay.
And lots of other people work the same. The economics of floristry shops is it's a completely different subject, which is probably not relevant for today. So, but yeah, I just mentioned Lois because I know she's local to you, and I know you will be able to go in there and order a funeral tribute that will be made in a sustainable, biodegradable manner.
Okay, that's lovely. Is there anything else you want to say about it while we're talking?
No, I think I probably said what I want to say.
Okay, that's perfect. So people can come to you to order flowers, and they can also order any tributes, or, wedding flowers, etc. they would want. And you are Catkins and Clematis.
Yes, I am wearing my my branding.
Which is Leamington.
Yeah.
Okay. How do people contact you if they want to?
So I have a website, which is www.catkinsandclematis. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook. I think if you search for Catkins and Clematis, I will come up fairly easily on those. So yeah, more than happy to do funeral tributes. But I say I'm conscious that I operate within quite a small geographical area, which is why I've tried to kind of suggest other routes for the rest of the country, because I'm certainly not unique.
That's perfect. Well, it's been a very unique conversation for me.
Good.
I haven't spoken to anybody about anything like this before, and I find it really interesting, and I'm hoping other people on the groups will also find it interesting. And I definitely know that next time I will ask. I think something I would consider it.
Yeah, I think that's it's with lots of things. The more consumers ask, the more it will happen. Because that's the power of the consumer. If people are just going into the florist saying, "Can I have some flowers?" the florist will do it in the easiest and cheapest way for them.
Yes, very true. Yeah, very true. Consumer pressure, really, and
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And so, but again, unless we know, we don't know.
You don't need to do it. No, precisely. So,
but no, I'm really, really pleased that you came on and spoke to me about it, Heather. Thank you very much. It's been really
no problem at all.
To find out a bit more, and hopefully other people will make a few changes that can have a big effect.
Cool. Okay.
Thanks very
much.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.